Kentucky, 1996. In a small town in Kentucky, an unsuspecting evil force engulfs every living thing in its wake as members of the community lock up their doors and stay clear of a certain area in town. Rumors burn through the town like a forest fire. Burning embers of gossip ignite the theory that vampires exist. Their leader is known other than the infamous vampire, Visago, a 500-year-old vampire who actually existed, but not in the sense of the existing amongst the living, like you and I. You see, Visago, he's more of a fictional character from the popular role playing the game Vampire: The Masquerade. And the face behind Visago is a young teenager named Rod Farrell. Rod Farrell was born on March 28th, 1980, and struggled with a normal upbringing, if you could say. His mother, Sandra, was a teen mom when he was born, and his father left him to serve in the military, leaving him to grow up without a father figure in his life. Behind closed doors, Rod was repetitively, at a young age, by his maternal grandfather, although he was never brought up on any charges of sexual abuse of a minor. While his mother would be out at work as an exotic dancer and a sex worker, Rod sought refuge in the underworld labyrinth of vampirism, his favorite movie being Dracula. As he grew older, his love for vampires increased into an obsession as he started playing the game Vampire: The Masquerade. This was where he made friends as they developed a cult together with other like-minded individuals. The other members of the cult included Scott Anderson, Charity Kesey, Dana Cooper, and Heather Windroof. Together they would meet in an abandoned building out in the woods they nicknamed the Vampire Hotel, where they would do psychedelic drugs, throw wild parties, and perform ritualistic sacrifices. Rod's friend, Heather Windroof, also had a difficult childhood that involved being abused growing up, and this really resonated with Rod. They bonded over being each other's rock in a dark place, where they felt that they were alone and needed a way to escape from the realms of reality. Unfortunately, all good things come to an end when Heather told Rod that she and her family were moving away, and they would have to have a long-distance relationship. He didn't want to lose Heather, but he knew that he needed to do something to keep their relationship intact. Thus, constant telephone calls were being made between Rod's home back in Kentucky to Heather's new place in Florida, racking up hundreds of dollars in long-distance calls. Heather's parents were irate when they opened their phone bill after seeing so many calls corresponding between the two torn lovers, and they needed to put an end to this madness. So, they did what any other parent would do back then, when long-distance landline calls cost a small fortune to have. They unfortunately cut off Heather's phone privileges and broke off all communications with Rod. Not liking the situation they were in and wanting to save Heather from her abusive family, desperate times called for desperate actions, and Rod knew he had to save his fellow vampire friend from her evil parents so they could run away together to New Orleans and all live together as one big vampire family. Rod gets the rest of the cult members together to come up with an idea to save Heather, but things take a dark turn for the worst. On the fateful day of November 25th, 1996, Rod and his fellow vampire cult members drove down to Murray, Kentucky, to Eustis, Florida, 750 miles away, to confront Heather's parents. Upon arriving, their car breaks down and Heather decides to steal her family's car so they can continue on their way down to New Orleans. Rod absolutely went for the idea, as their mission was to rescue Heather and start a turning ritual, as Rod and Heather exchanged blood with each other so that Heather could become immortal once and for all. While under the influence of LSD, the two performed their ritual out in the Eustis Cemetery, where Rod proceeds to slice open his wrist as Heather drinks, and finally went back to Heather's house. Once they make it back to the house, Rod and Scott Anderson, Rod's right-hand man, slowly creep into the residence via garage, where they find Mr. Windrow asleep on the couch in the living room. This is where mayhem erupted in the home, as Rod violently cracked Mr. Woodruff's skull open with a crowbar, a total of 22 times. Coming out of the bathroom after a long shower, Naomi Ruth Queen rushes into the living room to find Mr. Windrow lying on the floor, dead and blood running everywhere. Seeing Rod and Scott standing over him, Ruth reportedly ran into the kitchen, grabbed a cup of hot coffee, and threw it at Rod's face. Unfortunately, Ruth did not have the moment to run away, as Rod immediately swung the crowbar at her head, striking her in the brainstem, as she died instantly. The intention was to leave Ruth alive, but once she threw the hot coffee in Rod's face, it was game over, and that action sealed her fate as we know it. Now the mission was complete. Heather's parents were out of the picture, and everyone would live happily ever after, or so they thought. Before retreating out of the house, the two stole valuable assets, including some of Ruth's jewelry, money, and car. Later that night, Heather's sister, Jennifer, arrived home after work and found her parents' bodies and called the police. 2 days later, warrants were issued for everyone in the cult, including Heather, who has no idea that her parents have been murdered. On November 28th, the group was arrested outside of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, after one of the members, Charity, Rod's 16-year-old girlfriend, called her family asking them to send her money to help her out. Rod gave an interview with the Orlando Centennial after the arrest and told reporters that he was innocent after being framed by a rival coven of vampires for the murders, discovered that he has multiple personality disorder, and was renouncing his vampire way of life. Rod's trial commenced on February 5th, 1998, and after much argumentative correspondence between him and his attorney, Rod Furrell pled guilty to 2 counts of first-degree murder. After several weeks, he went back. Rod returned back to the courthouse to determine his fate. He was given the death penalty. As Honorable Jerry Lockett pronounced his sentence, he had a message to give to Rod. "I think you are a disturbed young man. I think your family failed you, and I think society failed you." Source: CBS News. In April 1998, Scott Anderson was sentenced to 2 life sentences for his contribution to the slayings, although he stated in the trial that he did not touch Mr. Windrow, and Rod was the mastermind behind the entire attack. As for the rest of the cult members, Charity Kesey and Dana Cooper took a plea deal and were given lesser sentences. Charity received a 10-year sentence, and Dana received 17. It's reported that both women have served their time and has since been released. In the year 2000, after being named one of the youngest death row inmates, Rod's death penalty verdict was reappealed, as the Florida Supreme Court stated that defendants must be 17 or older in order to receive the death penalty, and is now currently serving a life sentence without any possibility of parole. In 2018, Scott Anderson was resentenced to serving 40 years in prison and will be eligible for release in 2031 at the age of 51. What started out as a rescue mission to save a beloved family member from an abusive home turned into a cold-blooded murder. We don't know why others turn to killing in times of crisis, But for the towns of Murray, Kentucky, and Eustis, Florida, vampires existed in the form of deadly, bloodthirsty teenagers. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, make sure to let me know down in the comment section if you would like to hear more types of stories like this. I kind of went back to my roots for this one. It's kind of how my channel actually started. But there's a very big difference between then and now. Please do not go watch my early stuff. Please do not. It's horrible. But if you would like to hear more of these, please do let me know in the comments. Make sure to like, comment, and if you're new to this channel and you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe. We're doing nothing but growing. I honestly find a very big interest in this type of stuff, especially like the cult stuff. I'm not saying I'm a cultist or anything. I just find it fascinating. But with that being said, if you would like to hear more, make sure to let me know, like I said. Make sure to check out my links in the description as well, like my Twitter, Instagram, and even my Gmail if you would like to submit a story. I love telling subscriber stories, or just stories in general that you guys find interesting that doesn't require permission or anything. But with that being said, stay safe, stay scary, and I'll see you in the next one.